Good afternoon and welcome to part two session of our conversation around AI-driven transformation. I'm your host and moderator today, Tim Vandermel. I'm one of the senior technology advisors here at C3. Before we jump in here, I do want to cover just a couple of housekeeping items. For those of you that are wondering, the answer is yes. This will be recorded, and the link will be sent out shortly after the discussion. If you do have questions, you can see that little Q&A section at the bottom. Feel free to throw in your questions, and we'll jump into those towards the end. Last item is we are going to stop at like the 55-minute mark, and that's just to give everybody joining virtually as well as our panelists a few minutes to breathe before their next meetings, because I'm sure we all have other meetings we have to attend to. So, all right. So why are we here? Some of you attended the C3 Tech Summit last month in person, and we dove into a wide range of topics, such as the incremental and transformative impacts of AI use within organizations, key considerations for AI exploration as well as adoption. We talked a lot about data quality preparedness and much, much more. So since we knew at the Tech Summit 30 minutes wasn't going to be enough time, myself and the panelists here, we all decided and agreed that a part two session was going to be necessary. So for those of you joining us virtually, thank you for joining us again. And panelists, thank you for taking time out of your busy, busy days. So back with us again for the discussion today is Rob Campbell, Director of Data Science and Artificial Intelligence at Corewell Health, Jerry Winkler, CIO at Hayworth, and AJ Kuftik, Field CTO at Expedient. So, all right, guys, let's just dive in. Rob, I'm going to start with you. You did such a great job moderating the discussion at the Tech Summit, so I want to give you the first opportunity to speak here. So, as we kind of thinking about getting started, and again, we all understand you work for a very large healthcare organization, so things may be a little bit different for you compared to some of your peers here locally. But for organizations that are curious or even very early on in their exploration of AI, are there any like no-brainer or like low-hanging fruit applications or even use cases that you feel are a good place to start?
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, thank you, Tim, for having me and organizing this event. And really well done with the C3 Summit. It was a fantastic event. So yeah, there are a lot of misconceptions about AI. There's a lot of fear surrounding the technology, and a lot of really just misinformation that is out there about what it can and can't do. As you heard during the panel discussion that we had at the C3 Summit, there are a lot of the use cases that we're currently exploring that we wouldn't necessarily say are transformational, but there is a high degree of confidence that we have that this technology will absolutely end up transforming the way we all go about doing business. So with that in mind, I think some of the low hanging fruit are really things that help get people comfortable with the technology, help establish an idea of what's possible, and really start to show people that it's not something to be feared, that it is something that you can embrace in your everyday life to do really simple tasks and make your job and certain aspects of your life more enjoyable. So with that in mind, I think, if your organization runs on Microsoft, I think even just making the general Copilot for the web available and providing education and training around what you can do with that, again, just to get people comfortable and get people exposed to what this technology is and what it's capable of, I think is a great place to start. I also always encourage people in their personal lives, go use tools like ChatGPT and use Copilot at home and see what it can do, what it can help you with, because it starts to get your ideas flowing and really start to illustrate what you can do and what the limitations of the technology are. The other use case that I think is really valuable for those that are in organizations that have developers or people in developer adjacent roles like data scientists or data engineers, tools like GitHub Copilot and Code Companions are one area where we have seen an incredibly large benefit. A lot of these initiatives are really difficult to measure the gains in efficiency, but code development is one specific area where we've seen just phenomenal gains in efficiency and increases in team member satisfaction. So those are the areas where I would, if you're looking at where do you even start, those are the real easy, low hanging fruit ideas that really go a long way to build comfort and actually start to improve things throughout your organization.
Sweet. Jerry, AJ?
Yeah, I can add on to that. I agree with everything Rob said. I think it's important. It's extremely important for your employees to have a place to go investigate and learn, right? I think you think about low hanging fruit is where do you already have data? How can I drop something into a conversational AI tool and chat with the document or chat with the data, right? Use it. Things where you already have data is an easy place to start, something somebody personally can do, but really create that whole environment of it's safe and it's easy to try things and learn, right? And I think the safe part, well, that's not the purpose of this particular question, is important, right? I mean, we people don't learn well when they're worried that I don't want to put this data in because it might go out to it might be consumed as part of the large language model learning and so forth. So I think those two things tied together. And as an employee or anybody learns and matures in that, then being able to expand the data that's available, how it's available, right? And you can start thinking about bigger and more complex solutions or problems that you work on. But I think to start, it's really to create these chatbot type things. I mean, they're easy, and if you can secure them, it's a real good way for someone to accelerate quickly. And then maybe open it up into more formalized, you know, boot camps and other things that you could do to build these practitioners and champions a lot quicker.
And I think this is the right now, I think we're still in the launch phase. I think we're still in that, like, what are we going to do with this type of phase? So right now we're kind of in that ability that everything is low hanging fruit. Whatever seems like it's a problem to go solve, let's go do that. As we start to see internal data being connected in, the low hanging fruit is how do I make my internal data chat accessible? How do I turn this chat function into an SME on call? To me, that's the lowest hanging fruit. Being able to just being able to ask questions and get the answers I need out of it instead of trying to figure out, okay, where's that thing that I need to do that I know exists and then have to go find it, I think is massive. So I think the lowest hanging fruit is there. It's then beyond that of predictive AI where that gets into the more sort of abstract, where we're still working on how to actually make all of that work successfully, securely, safely. But right now, the generative piece of being able to just ask questions is massive right now.
Yeah. All right. AJ, I want to come back to you because I feel like you're in a unique position because you get to work with all different kinds of organizations at different levels. So when we talk about like identifying the right areas and the opportunities to implement AI, we all know that can be challenging. So AJ, from your experience, how are you seeing organizations going about like the identification and even prioritizing initiatives involving AI?
I see a lot of organizations. I've seen two sides of this. One, there's the organizations that say we have to do AI, and that's the extent of what they're asking, and because it's a buzzword. That's a bad idea. Don't do that. The bigger one is when we are going to go try to use AI to go solve a specific problem, right? What is this use case that we think AI can actually do the job? A lot of times that's actually RPA. What people want is I have this thing that is a consistent process that happens over and over again. They really want RPA. They want the ability to say, I need something to automate this manual process. That's RPA. But AI being utilized for things like automated responses to tickets, automated responses to sales requests. Hey, we received your request, and write a nicer email than just merge, effectively an old mail merge. Those are the sorts of things that can be done that hit that lower instant use case of like, okay, we did this thing, we know how it worked. Okay, we got it. Now, how do I do that again? We did this internally with our ticketing system where we had and I told this story at the CTS Summit, but for those who weren't there, I'll tell it again. The bigger thing that we did was we have our notes and our tickets, and we can potentially have dozens of notes inside of a ticket. But the real question was, where is this ticket right now? What is the status of this thing? Having something that summarizes that, which is what generative AI is really great at doing, having something that summarizes that is really great. And so we used our AI tooling, pointed at our in-house ticketing system that's not a, off-the-shelf thing. We wrote it ourselves to be able to pull in that data, summarize it, and now our shift turnover takes like 10 minutes instead of an hour and a half like it used to. That's a massive savings of time and effort and headaches and communication problems that's solved through doing this. So we see that as a big benefit. We're all on a Zoom webinar right now. The Zoom AI companion, we use it internally. It's really great at being a thing that sits in the background, takes notes, says what people say, what are the follow-ups. It also makes transcription better and can do the automation of chapters. So if you're in a long meeting, like an all hands meeting, or you want to do some sort of announcement for HR things, having that with a transcript, with chapters and all that, it's all done via AI now. So those are the sorts of things that save time across the board. I think those are the big use cases and opportunities to identify.
Rob, Jerry, anything else to add to that one?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, you talked a little bit about prioritization, but I think, in order to get to a place where you can take these ideas that people are getting, right? Some of them are going to be aligned pretty straightforward with things that are available. Use the tools, use the AI assisted application capabilities that you have there. But I think the next level really requires that you have employees that understand how to build an AI business case. And I'm not talking a big complex, 20-page document on a ROI and stuff. I'm just saying the business case around it. This is the business problem we'd like to do. Here's why AI is a feasible solution to this thing, right? And then what does it mean? What kind of data is being used behind it? And all that goes into, both the value of it, but also the feasibility of it, right? And as most companies are going to be in a constantly maturing AI capabilities and understanding, right? Skill sets from your team, you have to be able, it has to be feasible to do, right? And that's how you can, and I think those all grow as you go. But, one thing, the most important thing is that you can put these into something that's common, like a good business case.
Yeah, I think just to piggyback on both what AJ and Jerry said, I think there is a lot of shiny object chasing when it comes to AI. AJ mentioned there's a lot of companies that have this mentality of we need more AI, and that's if you recall Gary Sorrentino's comments from your summit, that nobody's asking for more HTML, for example, right? And it's really important for us to keep the problem that we're trying to solve at the forefront, right? You may have heard the term or the saying, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And that's absolutely the case here with AI. And so one of the things that we've done at Corewell Health is really when we're having conversations with leaders and with team members, and we're trying to go hunting for where there's value and where there's the best use cases for AI, we don't even use the term AI. We don't go into those conversations asking, where do you want to use AI? We actually have people on our team that have a background in user experience and human factors engineering, and really try to understand the problems that they have in their areas of the business, and really trying to get to the core of what are the problems that they're trying to solve, what is going to be most impactful. Sometimes there's no use for AI in some of these solutions. You find a very straightforward solution without using AI, but a vast majority of the time you can. And it's really important to help lay it out in much more simple terms, and really get into some of the workflows that the teams that you're supporting are going through in their daily jobs, and really just try to figure out where can you be most impactful with an AI type solution. And so those are the conversations that we have found to be most helpful to really understand where those valuable use cases are.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Jerry, I want to go to you on this one, or at least start with you on this one, just because you're living and breathing this right now. So talking about stakeholder buy-in as well as change management. So I think it's fair to say we all know one of the most difficult aspects of AI integration. Really, it doesn't really have to do with the technology, but finding and building that stakeholder support can be really difficult. So again, Jerry, just knowing that you're living and breathing this, can you talk a little bit about Hayworth went about getting that key stakeholder support for some of these AI initiatives you were going to? And then there is a part 2 of this question, but let's start with part 1 first.
Yeah, so you're spot on, right? There's two very distinct things that have to come together. One is the technical enablement, right? There's you do have to understand what your platforms are, what applications you're adopting. Is it secured? Is it that? And there's a whole enablement of the technology. The second piece, the change management, I think is the part that's probably neglected the most, because and then I'll say it just takes it's more of a grind, right? I mean, you need to educate your people. You need to have a path. You're not going to get stakeholder buy-in if they don't understand what it is that you're doing there. They don't understand what you're doing. It's more than just having the skill sets to put a good prompt together, or how do I attach data to it, or that, right? It is really this: how do I build business cases? How do I use it to do the things that I want to do today better? And then, that's a focus again on value with how you use AI as opposed to the technology itself, right? And building that skill set up, right? I mean, you say it's really easy to say, I would like to do we should have a COE, an AI COE. That sounds really good, right? But the reality is you need people who are growing, and honestly, you don't know who they are day one. And I think things like providing that education, uh, doing different things that might highlight the successes in different areas, building the excitement around it, and really providing that atmosphere, culture for somebody to grow into more of a practitioner, and then eventually maybe a champion, right? And the idea would be you could build these people up, because the reality is not many companies just can go buy a bunch of AI people, a bunch of AI skill sets. It's not going to happen. And even then, right? Just the focus on these transformational things could get in the way of just using it to get better and better and better, right? So I think that's really uh,
Yeah, and Jerry, one of the things you actually said at the Tech Summit was when you're looking for people internally to start using some of these solutions, they may not be the traditional power users that you traditionally leaned on. Some of these are going to be newer people that are just really interested in what some of this technology can do. So that was actually a really good point that you made last time. So I'm sorry, Rob, AJ, did you guys have anything to add to that before we kind of go into the part two piece of that question?
Yeah, I think the big one from at least this a stakeholder standpoint is when you have these folks at the top understand what is their goal of rolling out something like AI. Is that they want to go faster, or that they're potentially thinking that they can not have people doing that job anymore? Um, I grew up in Northwest PA. I've seen the tool and die industry. I live in Pittsburgh. I've seen the steel industry, right? A lot of that stuff comes at a cost somewhere along the line. So understand that that's potentially part of it. So understand your stake in that, understand where they're going with it, and understand if what they're asking for is even possible, and help them understand what this is actually going to do. And I think a lot of this should be to enable people and not replace people. But I think in this space right now, I think there's a lot of desire for replacement, and I don't know that we're necessarily there yet.
I like the idea of in communicating that to your teams as well, that it really is it in the current iteration all about enablement and enhancement, it really increasing efficiency, effectiveness, and job satisfaction. And we're seeing that the vast majority of people who do use these tools are seeing is significantly increased job satisfaction, which is one of the messages that we try and evangelize here. And I think the stakeholder aspect of this, the one thing that is really important is the ones that are really effective that we have observed here is that they all have one common theme, and that's that they really understand the what's in it for me aspect of this, and that they understand the value that it's going to add to their job, their role, their area of the department. And because of that, they're also more willing to invest their time. I think that's one thing that's really important to highlight, that most of us that have IT teams, data science teams, AI machine learning teams, generally they're going to be quite broad in nature. And at Corewell Health, we have our care delivery, we have all of our business functions, HR, finance, revenue cycle that we support. And so we're sort of the jack of all trades, master of none, which means that we have to rely really heavily on very close involvement with subject matter experts and end users. And that is a pretty significant time commitment. And so you really do have to be clear up front of what that division of responsibilities looks like and the time commitment that's going to be required. And if you can get to a point where you have a mutual understanding with those stakeholders, you're going to be in a great spot and have
a much higher likelihood of success than with people who seem to be chasing that AI without a clear understanding of the value it's going to add for them and the time commitment that's going to be required from them and their teams.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess when I hear you guys give that explanation, it's like you better be damn prepared to go to your to the people that are officially going to be signing this off, and you better be damn sure you know all the questions and the rebuttals and what ifs and it depends kinds of answers. So no, appreciate that, guys. All right, so part 2 of this is and again, this can be like a whole separate session just talking about effective change management. But Jerry, I want to go back to you just because again, you guys are doing some pretty cool things. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges or some of the things you guys have learned through the change management process on some of these projects you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that we've been very conscious to do is to really understand why, and ask in different, through different avenues, right? Why might there be resistance or even empathy in, an individual and employee moving themselves forward in this, right? And it can be obviously anything from I'm afraid my job's going to go away to, it sounds complicated, I don't know how to do it, or I'm too busy. I mean, there's a lot of reasons, right? And I think understanding those and putting good communication plans in to really acknowledge, I think one, yeah, I get, you watch the news, you see these things. Some things are exciting, some things are scary, right? And everybody interprets these things differently. And then, also applying it to their personal life is one thing, go to work, and it's a totally other thing. So I think, really spending the time on that, and it's it's not to me, especially being a technology leader, it's not the most exciting way to spend my time. But I do understand that the easiest way for something to crash and burn, or to not be achieving the value, right? I mean, like it or not, we're all going to be spending money, some significant money on AI capabilities, right? Whether it's consultants or product or platforms, and because of that, I think it's important that we understand how effective change management, how important that is, and the adoption, to whether or not we look back a year, 2 years from now and say, yeah, this was really successful or not. And tracking along the way. And one of the things we're doing is, tracking the kind of usage, understanding what they are, right? It's easy to get caught up in let's give somebody, 25 large language models to do things with. But in reality, most people pick one and I really like this one. And as they learn and grow, they might say, okay, well, there's reasons for these other ones. And I think that's kind of let's put something there that allows them to enable them to grow. And again, celebrate the wins and recognize when somebody's contributed, right? I think I talked a little bit at the C3 show, right, about some of the boot camp stuff we're doing. I think those are very, very good ways to accelerate somebody faster than they would if they were just doing their own self-learning or getting these little wins or seeing what their neighbor's doing in the office next door, right? These are things where you say, you got 2 days, we're going to do something. And, honestly, they're not transformational type things that those teams would work on, but they are enough that they walk out of there wanting to show people and wanting to tell people and excited about where they are and understanding. I know way more about prompt engineering or prompting. I know way more about vector vaults. I know a lot more about business cases. Ours won, ours didn't win. That kind of thing I think is a good way to really accelerate the practitioners and the change.
Well, that's not a key takeaway for the people that are listening in. I don't know what else is. And that key takeaway is if you haven't done so already, start thinking about these AI workshops or like these immersion groups where you can take, multiple business units within your organization and have them go through the same training and almost, create like a competitive market internally. And you never know what might happen. So, Jerry, appreciate that.
Yeah, again, like you said it earlier, but you will be surprised on who bubbles to the top of some of these things, who has the excitement, who's willing to, use it in their day-to-day day life. Some won't. you'll know there's some, and others be a big surprise. And I think this is one thing I also tell employees, right? This could be your shot to, take your career in a new direction or accelerate your career where you may be struggling in the past to say, how do I get past, what I do today?
Yeah, and disclaimer for those listening, there are some really great companies that that provide these workshops, and there's some ones that just they're just not there yet. So just tread lightly. Again, we're always here if you need help. AJ, Rob, anything you guys want to add to those comments?
Yeah, I think to Jerry's last point, this is one of the beautiful parts of new technology stacks. I'll just go to my personal story back, 15 years ago now, when virtualization was really taking off. I got deep into that, and it's what built my career over the last 15 years, which was really great. So these are the opportunities where everybody's trying to figure it out. You don't have somebody who's been doing AI for the last 10 years. I'm sure there is somewhere, and they're like a professor. But this sort of structure that we're in right now and what generative AI does and how to connect everything together is so nascent in terms of where we are in the time scale, that you don't have, there's no 10 years of experience for an entry-level job for AI yet. I'm sure it'll get there soon. But these are the sorts of things that we're seeing, that our team who's worked on our AI product is all young. They are all relatively excited and hungry people who are working towards building something new that we haven't done before, right? Versus here's the technology stack that other people who are in the company have been doing for the last 10 years, where it's hard to kind of move past that level. AI is a way to jump directly in and just take that next step. I think the other thing that we're seeing is there's a generational gap in AI use. I was actually talking with somebody about this, and they are a manager. They have Gen Z, Gen X, and millennials, and they have boomers. And they said the Gen Z group is all the way in. They love it. They're using it constantly. And you have the boomers who they use it, but they also know that they have the institutional knowledge of this thing. They were there when that thing happened 22 years ago, when that something was implemented. So it's all up here. And it's the middle group of the Gen X and the millennials that are very hesitant because they see it as a replacement. And to Jerry's point, it's we are here to enhance. We are here to try and take the sort of nonsense off the plate, or make those sorts of things easier. I joke about one of our SMEs who is an incredibly smart person, but also spends a whole lot of his time answering questions that are just in the documentation. I'm begging you to read the docs. We wrote them. Can you please go read them? And putting a chat interface in front of them actually makes them go faster. So these are the sorts of things that are enabling people, and there is a fear. And I think that fear is somewhat founded on, I don't want this to take away my job, or I don't want this to take away my employment. And helping people understand that these are the things to lean into, and these are the things that will take your career further and ensure that you're not a replaceable person. It's really hard though, because I think there's a lot of people who have that fear, and I've even had it too, and I'm doing quite all right. But there's times where I'm like, I could do a lot of what I do right now. Man, I should probably do better. And that's the difference. It's okay. Show how you're going to do that better. Show why a human touch makes that better. I think that's the more interesting part here, is the part of that change management is the people management of it, the emotion management of this. And if you can do that successfully, you're going to have a really, really great staff along with a great technology stack to go along with that.
Yeah, and to try and reinforce those points, and then make all really, really important points to make sure that your team members are aware of and have top of mind when you're rolling out these types of initiatives. But just over communicate like crazy, provide transparency so people see what initiatives are out there. And the more you can demystify this, the better off you're going to be. And we've even brought somebody on board full time to manage an AI communications education and upskilling program throughout the organization. So we have logs that my team and I do on a biweekly basis to provide information about what's going on, the resources available to you, the exact language that AJ has been using about we are here to enhance and enable and not replace, and the importance of getting used to using these tools. So all of these things, again, just over communicating the strategy and the approach and the use cases and the results that we're seeing too, and showing, look at all the positivity that's coming out of people that are using these tools, that have seen the benefit. So I think just making sure that you're being transparent and communicating very clearly about the approach, the intent, and really the goals of your AI program.
Yeah, thank you. And Rob, we're getting a little bit of static from your end, so just to give you a heads up. All right, so a lot of what we were just talking about, it really does go into culture. There's a really specific tie to that. So I think I'm going to ask the question, but I think some of this could already be applied to what we've already discussed. But just for the sake of it, and Jerry, maybe we start with you because you guys have been on this journey for quite a while. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys have approached, building that culture that does encourage AI-driven innovation, if you will?
Yeah, it's an important question because if the employees don't believe that talk about a vision and where you're going and what the expectation is, yet they're still thinking in their head, this is a way to reduce me as a, or reduce me outright. They're not going to buy into it, right? You're going to have the resistance, you're going to have the empathy. So and this goes back to kind of what I said at the beginning, right? Really thinking about why those things could happen and what you could do, right? Because we've done a couple workshops now, for essentially for people who are worried, but not just them, right? About, is this going to replace me? But really the message of it is, everybody should look at their own role and say, what pieces of what I do today should I personally replace myself? Right. Because the less of that you're doing as part of what you call your day-to-day job, the more likely it is that the percentage of your job can be, someone might look at it and say, well, if you can do that in AI, why do we need you? Right. I mean, you shouldn't pretend that it couldn't be a real question, but personally, everybody should kind of look within. And our workshop really is about identifying the pieces that you should be looking at there and which ones what parts of your role or your job that aren't, and focus on building out, doing more of that stuff, right? Where you are using it to just enhance where you bring the value. And I think those kind of things go a long way they really do. They really are looking to help me get better, right? Not just, but they come along with a message too of, yeah, if 30% of what you do every day is just mundane, lots of data available, easy to do, you're answering questions, right? I mean, look to rid that of your own day and then use that 30% to go do something in the other areas are reasons why that they're either hard to do with AI or impossible today. So,
Yeah.
those kind of things I think build the culture that if people believe that the strategy and plan and what you're doing is about them, it's about, the culture is about them learning, them getting better, them using it. Um, I think they'll buy in. That's really what we're seeing too. A lot of excitement around that, and less discussion around the bad things about AI, the security, stuff. When we start saying check your data, you can use any data you want in our platform because it's not being shared. Don't spend your time worrying about that while you use it and figure out things. Check. Don't spend your time worrying about whether you're going to be replaced. I'd say that anyways to anybody, but but figure out how you get rid of the pieces of your job that should be replaced by AI to make you more efficient and effective.
Yeah, I think the shorter way to say it is if you're going to say that they're worried about the parts of their job or they're worried about the AI being a replacement, it's to have them start looking at their job and go, what is the thing that sucks about your job? What is the thing you hate doing? And figure out ways to have AI do that, right? One, it makes your job less bad. I am terrible at programming. I was never good at programming, but occasionally I have to. And one of the things that AI is really, really good at is, hey, I need this function. I need this bit of code, a SQL statement, something like that, where it jumps the line and it immediately gets you to that answer instead of you banging your head against Excel for an hour, right? Or banging your head against your low code platform. Notice I said low code, not no code. There's still code in there. And those are the things that when you can enable yourself to do that, it shows that you are willing to take on new things. It shows that you're willing to learn. It shows that you're willing to go solve problems. And when you use the AI tools to get over the hump of things that are normally very hard for you, or things that are normally not your skill set, it shows that you are willing to take on the tools. I look at this like when I was in school, I'm sure most of you also had this in school. You're not going to have a calculator all the time. And now I have a phone that can literally contact the internet and tell me anything that has ever happened on planet Earth. Like, technology has changed. So how do you utilize that technology for your benefit? How do I know how to do the thing or know what I want to do? I just don't have the exact method to do that, and have AI help you generate what that method is. And it may not be right. And along the way, you'll learn things like, oh, hey, it wasn't right because this variable wasn't correct. And I'm able to also learn through that process. And that's where you, as an employee, show value. And I think part of the messaging to staffs, if you're a director, if you're a manager of people and you're trying to roll AI out to your organization, is let this be an opportunity for you to learn and take on new skill sets without having to completely go relearn things in the process. And I think that is a massive thing to pass along. It's a massive thing that AI does enable, and we're going to see more of it going forward.
Rob, anything to add to that?
No, I mean, I think that there's a lot of exactly what both AJ and Jerry mentioned. It's important to just give people the opportunity to explore, experiment, fail if they in just making sure that you're there to provide the support and the resources necessary. But I don't think there's any much more I can add. I think they covered it fantastic.
Yeah, and when I heard Jerry and AJ talk a little bit, I couldn't help but think of, as you're thinking about your AI enhanced workforce, what kind of bucket do they fall into? Is it a assisted workforce? Is it augmented? Is it autonomous? And you can start to identify what types of users you're going to have within your workforce that really does want to like dive into AI and help them get rid of some of the mundane stuff that everybody's kind of already mentioned. And how do you still have that human in the loop for some of the things that you want to really autonomize, if that's even the right way to say that word. So anyways, all right. Oh, I'm sorry, Rob, did you have something else?
No, is my mic a little bit better?
A little bit.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
The only thing I'll add is just I think and it's kind of a counterintuitive idea, but I think as AJ mentioned, if you're using AI the right way, it really can take away a lot of the really mundane, tedious things about people's jobs that people don't like doing. And if we are all taking the right approach and using AI effectively, implementing it effectively in our organizations, it really will allow us to take a more human-centric approach to the work we do. It'll free up more time for us to have face-to-face time with the customer or patient in our case, and more time to think about decision making and strategy and things that the AI is not as good as humans and really never will be. So I think those are the things that are again kind of a counterintuitive idea, but really using the technology to free us up to be more human.
And I think that's also where it can be really interesting going forward of how much does AI do, and then when is the human element brought in? I think a lot about IVR systems. I'm a boring person on the inside, I think, but I think about IVR systems and like phone trees. And when you call like the 1-800 number for some customer service, what's the first thing most people do? They start pressing 0 to try and get to a person because they don't want to like say balance and have the terrible phone system not understand the word balance, and it turns into a bad experience. I think that element of this is really capable of answering the questions and being less robotic about it, even though it is very much a robot, in terms of being able to respond with not just canned responses, but change the responses enough to sound human. But when a human experience is needed, having that available is going to be a differentiator. And I think this is where this sort of like human and AI sort of balance comes into play, especially as you start to roll that out to frontward or outward facing applications of, hey, when somebody needs a person, give them a person. When somebody wants a person, give them a person, because that keeps them on board as a customer. It keeps them on board as thinking your company is good at what they do, and also says, hey, they take care of me. Sometimes their computer systems are weird, but they take care of me when I need the actual help. And I think that is a massive differentiator compared to some companies who are like, yeah, but we can have AI do everything. It's like, yeah, but it's going to turn out badly in certain cases, and leaving the human element there, I think, is going to keep things going for a much longer time.
Yeah, no, good stuff. All right, we've got about 15 more minutes. I've got a few questions that have come through. I do have a few of my own before we get to those, because one of the questions that came through is actually really cool. I think that'd be nice to actually end with that one. So, Jerry, I'm going to go back to you. Let's talking a little bit about competitive advantages. So, you don't have to necessarily. We don't want to say too much about the Hayworth environment, but how would you recommend organizations think about how they about AI creating that competitive advantage for them? What are like one or two things that you would recommend that they really think about?
Yeah, I think there's a few areas, right? I think within your own company, right? Hyper personalizing things, or hyper enabling, members to do their jobs better. And thinking about it as in a bigger picture, I think can really look at, besides somebody assisting themselves and even augmenting a group, right? But bigger things that you could say, how can we ship on time and go from, X% to X plus 10%, right? Something that's significant, right? Something that's going to change the competitive landscape there. I think outside of your own business, working with some of the groups that are, some of the partners that you have that are hard to manage, right? I mean, everybody has supplier problems. We have a big complex dealer network, right? They aren't Hayworth owned dealers, very complex. Many times the difference between a very productive, profitable sale and not is everything moving, flowing. And I think applying the same type of hyper enabling right there, I think is while there's a ton of considerations, once you go outside of your own business, right, with data and ownership and security and just even ethical type things, right? How are you using it, and the ability to share that information and make sure that, even legally, right, that you're using things in a responsible way. And when you need to make sure they understand how you're using it, or they are, right? It could be the other way. They want you to adopt into something that they're using. And I think those are that's when things really get super exciting, right? But they also become a lot more complex. So it's not the walk stage that you start thinking of those big things, but they are, you should be thinking about them, because they're not going to happen by somebody learning to write some prompts, or, you know, being here, right there. And many times that can't even happen with the skill set that you have within your own organization, and you're going to need to partner with someone to make those happen.
Yeah.
And
I can't help but think of data, like in knowing our data and being able to interact with it and get the things that we may traditionally not really think of to get out of our data is super important. So
yeah, on the flip side, regarding data, I would say it's probably one of the bigger opportunities to have your partner share with you data that they would never have shared in the past, right? It's the Google Maps thing. It's like, hey, if you let me share your data on where you're at every moment of the day and everywhere you go, wherever you drag your device, I'll give you this easy way for you to route a path to somewhere, tell you when you're going to get there, and the value that someone perceives dwarfs it's not like nobody, that everybody doesn't know they're giving Google a lot of data. I'm not saying anything bad about Google. I like Google, but the but it's real, right? It's like if the Google just came to me and said, could you just wear this tracker so we know where you are every day, and we'll do whatever we want with that data? We'd probably say no, absolutely not. So it is, it might be the doorway into sharing of data that may not have even been possible in the past.
I think one of the points that is kind of underlying all of what's been discussed right now in terms of a competitive advantage is that none of it is necessarily unique to AI. And I think if you have an effective business strategy and you know what your competitive advantage is for your organization and your market, AI can help you really hypercharge those areas and really make those areas more effective and squeeze your profits higher and get your bottom lines lower. And that's where you're seeing, I've heard it said that the most effective AI strategy is the strategy you already have, assuming you have a good strategy, of course. And that's where, if you are able to really identify what is driving your business's value, using AI again to really squeeze as much out of those processes as you possibly can, is likely where you're going to see the biggest gains. It's not necessarily, at least in its current iteration, going to completely transform your business model, but it is going to help you really drill into those areas where you can get more efficiency and more effectiveness out of your processes, out of your team members, out of your platforms and tools.
Yeah, and that's really where, for us as a service provider, it's not hard to see where I can start putting AI into places that make sense, right? Here's our front end for people asking questions of our platform. Here's a front end for our documentation. Here is a way for us to make our shift changes easier for monitoring purposes. There's so many different places where I could drop AI in, and we're working on them. But those are the sorts of things of, how do I utilize that tool to do better jobs for my clients and my customers? Because if I don't, am I wasting their time? Are they going to have a better experience somewhere else? The thing that I always come back to, and Robbie just touched on it, is what's the competitive advantage? In my opinion, the competitive advantage of Expedia is our people. So for me, how do I enable my people to be in touch with our clients as much as possible and not just have it all in automated communications? Or how do I make sure that my time with my customers, which is very valuable, is being spent in the right ways? And that's really where AI comes into play, of let's make just, digesting any ticket statuses, make that easier so that when I talk to a client, there's not, well, what are you guys doing now? What was the problem again? Nobody wants to hear that. That's bad times. How do I make it so that I'm getting to resolutions faster because we have faster access to the answers to the problems? How do I make sure that I'm monitoring our environments in a way that clients are getting notified faster when we're having a problem or their specific application is having a problem? We do things like operating system management, where we're monitoring like Windows services. Can I get them a response faster? Can I get them a response that also includes, hey, we also noticed in the logs that these 3 things happened right before that, and it looks like you should probably go start here. That's, again, a better experience to the end client. So what we see there is being able to utilize that to get questions answered faster and enable our clients. And that's really where I see AI slotting in for us as a service provider, to provide that competitive advantage of getting my people more time with our clients in utilize that valuable time in a more effective way.
Rob, I saw you came off mute when.
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that highlights, and one thing that's actually become really apparent to me in having conversations with many of the different areas of our organization, is the importance of understanding what drives value for your business and really making sure you know what your competitive advantage is. AI is an incredible accelerator, and if you use it effectively for the right reasons, you're going to have really, really strong results. It can also accelerate you very quickly to bad results if you aren't pursuing the right use cases and you aren't using the right data. So it can be an accelerant in very dangerous ways if you don't really understand your business, your data, where the value really is. And you'd be surprised when having conversations with a lot of business leaders, when you ask a question like, if you had a magic wand and you could change one aspect of your business that would drive the biggest impact, what would that be? You will often get blank stares. It's really important, again, just to work with your stakeholders and in your areas of your organization to make sure that people really do understand what is driving value. Because if you don't, you're going to end up in a world of hurt very, very quickly.
Fire will warm your home up. It will also burn it down.
I like that one. I think I saw that on a bumper sticker once. All right, bad joke. All right, we've got time for one more question, because I really do want to make sure I don't want to make myself a liar by not getting everybody out here by 2:55. So this is one of the questions that came in. Jerry, we'll start with you. Looking ahead, what gets you the most excited about the future of AI, whether it's in your organization or the industry in general?
Yeah. So I think the pace of or even the growth of how AI is being adopted and used, it's very interesting to see the new ways people think. And that's, to me, it's the value of having your entire organization knowledgeable about this, is that there's just a lot more people, looking back, listening to what Rob just said, right? Understanding what are the biggest things that are happening. Where is the big value out there? Where are the biggest problems that we could do, and just the alignment of AI to that, right? I mean, I think before, one of the things ChatGPT brought, right, really was if you converse with it in this certain way, that's a different way of using data along with a large language model and so forth. And I think it was that newness of that's a nice way to, to do things. And I think we're seeing those kind of things happen in uh, solutions happen in different ways, right? Just talk to a document, right? Just the concept of, I want to drop a document in and I want to talk to it. Tell me about the retention policy of the email in my company, right? And it tells you, right? Because I mean, things like, that's an example where you might use an SOP and you say, I'm not going to look through 45 pages of SOP. Somewhere in there, I know there's email retention stuff, but I don't know where. Just those kind of things. And as those mature into like the next level, that stuff really, really excites me. And I think also on the being able to pull more value out of the data you have, right? I mean, to me, there's nothing better than a reward for a company for doing good data management, doing good data, having already focused a lot on data as an asset in your company. Sorry to the companies that didn't prioritize that, but it puts you in a position to really take advantage, because honestly, to do better and better things, I expect our company to be demanding more and more data be part of what they have available to them when they start talking about, how do I use AI to fix things or do things better or create solutions? I believe they should be, and might be a good indicator too of maturity of a organization and the kind of things they're asking for there too.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. AJ?
Yeah, I'm gonna echo Jerry's point about data. I think this is the first time in a long time where we're seeing the ability to have data that's spread across a number of different silos. I asked at the summit how many people are using one platform, and no one's hands went up. And I said, how many you are using? More than 5 of them. And every hand in the room went up. Where data is stored in companies is so fragmented and so broken up now that AI has the opportunity to bring a lot of that together to actually get answers into the hands of people. Where, to Jerry's point around like, what's the data retention? I don't want to dig through 45 SOPs when the SOPs are in 4 different systems potentially. Here's a way for you to just get the answer. I think that is going to be a massive thing going forward that I'm very, very excited about. And we have ways of helping to get there faster too.
Awesome.
And Tim, I'll rapid fire this one so you can keep your 255 promise. But I think for me, it's really it's an extension of the thought of the data, and it's really making the patient experience in healthcare or your customer experience much more just seamless and improved. And just healthcare is notorious for being a very poor experience to navigate care. Your doctor is usually rushed. So improving both the patient experience and the physician experience as well. And AI has a huge potential to do both and really make healthcare and a lot of other industries just much more personalized and much more approachable. And so that's really the promise of AI that gets me the most excited.
Oh, that's awesome. What a great conversation today, guys. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with everybody here virtually. So thank you again, as a reminder.